sister and I, we probably started drinking wine with dinner probably at 10. And people think that's weird, but you know, I feel like I've never had a problem with alcohol in any type of way. Like, I've never blackout drunk.
Thank you for tuning in to sip on this with a Paris. About to get lit with these topics. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for the love and your time. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Without further ado, I bring to you this for you to sip on.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Sip on This. I have another special guest for tonight's episode. You want to introduce yourself, sis?
Hi, my name is Jade, also known as Savvy.savage.
I thought it would be interesting from your standpoint as far as, you know, the American way of doing things opposed to the way Germans do things, or just the way that Europe, their, I was about to say standard of living, but just their way of life in general. I'm sure it's like night and day compared to what we go through here in the States. So with that being said, would you mind sharing some of those cultural differences, if you will, that made it possibly hard to adjust to the way of life when you guys moved here opposed to living in Germany?
Yeah. So first I want to go back because I feel like it's important to say like basically how I was raised. So my dad was in the military for I think about 26 years. So we did move around a lot. I was born and practically raised in Germany, but we moved almost every 2 to 4 years. So we were like bouncing all over the place. So in Germany, I was on like a military installation. So I went to an American school, but everything else was they call it on the economy. So that's basically with the locals. And my best friend is half German, half American. So I moved to the States by myself when I must have been 22. Yeah, I must have been 22. And it was a complete culture shock. Like, everything was just so different for me. Even though I had lived in Florida for a little bit, it was just going from Germany to DC. Everything was so different. And I think one of the major differences, especially when you go to a major city, so to paint a picture, where I'm from in Germany is very, very quiet. It's like all farm. I was raised with a lot of cows and sheep and everything. And when you drive, it's like a 45-minute drive to get to like where a lot of other local Americans are. So it was just like very secluded, I would say. And everybody was just very country, but not even in the sense of American country, just like quiet into themselves, but also very friendly. And when I moved to DC, I had never lived in like a major city before, so it was like the hustle and bustle of everything. Like, you're in the way, like regardless, you're in my way. Like, I need to step over you, and I had never really experienced that before. So that took some getting used to, just having to realize that not everybody wants to stand and talk, and there's a lot of competition in America. So, and I think too, in regards to competition, the whole concept of like workforce and family dynamic is very different overseas. So in America, it's very much so work hard, work hard, work hard. And you don't really, unfortunately, see your family that much because you're working so hard. Whereas in Germany, it's more of a sense of family, family, family. And I'm going to do a little work too, you know what I mean? Like, it's just very different. So I know there were a lot of times where in Germany, well, this is all the time, everything is closed on a Sunday in Germany because it's time to go to church if you go to church. If you don't go to church, it's time to go to see your family and just relax. And also, they take so many vacations. So it's like almost every week there's an event on for a random German holiday. And, you know, in the States, you're really looking at your calendar like, oh my gosh, when is the next
when
holiday?
is the next break?
Yeah, and it's just not like that in Germany. So I would say when I moved to the States, like the whole concept of just really focusing on a career, but it's just it's really hard to explain because obviously Germans and Europeans focus on their career, but it's not in such a cutthroat way like it is in America. Like everybody's fighting for something, whereas in Germany, it's more so we're all walking on the same path and like, here's a hand, I'll help you. And it feels like sometimes in America, it's more so like we cut off each other's hands to climb this wall to wealth, unfortunately. But
So, actually, while you were talking, I just thought about something randomly that I forgot to do for you as an icebreaker. So let's dial back for a little bit. So I'm also very curious as to what your answer would even be to this question. So what I'm starting to have my guests do as an icebreaker is to basically name whether it's a cocktail or a certain beverage specifically that you like to. What is your go-to choice of beverage these days?
So it is honestly always a Jack and Coke, and I don't like that answer because it's such a basic answer. And there was a time where I switched up and I was getting like vodka waters with like a splash of lime. And I wish that was still me, but it's honestly not. Like, it's embarrassing to feel like you're ordering a difficult drink at the bar. So I'm always just like, let me just get a double Jack and Coke. Yeah.
That's funny that you say that because although I know you haven't seen my last episode yet, I named Jack and Coke. And truth be told, like truth moment, I don't even like Jack. But literally the reason why I get Jack and Coke, it's easy. It's convenient.
Like, the bartender just looks at you, you're like Jack and Coke, nods and walks away. Like, you don't have to talk about it. You don't have to say what type of tequila. Like, I don't know, what do you have? How much does your Patron even cost here?
Right. And see, although I'm a tequila drinker, that's my drink of choice always. I don't know what cocktails you get at a bar where it's tequila and like, I don't know.
Yeah, like what goes with tequila?
The only thing that I know, see, is different because when you go to a restaurant, you can just be like, oh, let me get like a margarita or something. But when you go to a bar, it's like you're not gonna ask for a margarita at the bar.
I would hope not.
I mean, yeah, don't be that guy or girl, please. But
honestly, it also depends on the type of bar you go to. Because are we just talking about like random milk bar or like, are we talking about like a really ritzy upscale?
No, I mean like Glenwood bar.
I'm about to say, because I'll get a sidecar quick.
Oh, okay, got you. Yeah.
I'm not going to order a sidecar at the bar.
Yeah, that's. But yeah, I'm still on the search for a cocktail you can easily just order at any bar and they'll have it on hand and know exactly what it is that you're looking for. So
Incredible Hulk.
That's ghetto. And that's not even tequila.
I don't even know what it is. It's just like blue.
An Incredible Hulk is Hennessy and Hypnotic.
Yeah, that's just sick. That is so sick.
I've never had that from a bar either. I just know what it is because people have made it at like kickbacks and stuff. That's the only time I really had it.
Speaking of Germany, in drinking, so we saw this thing. I used to work at a sports bar. And every Wednesday, I don't know why Wednesdays are always like the ghetto nights of things. Regardless of where you are in the world.
Wednesdays.
Wasted Wednesdays, regardless. Thursdays are always for the ladies, like anywhere in the world. So at our sports bar, we saw this thing called Corona Night. So Corona Night was when they would bring in this DJ and it would get lit. So lit. And that's all everybody would drink would be these.
You said this was Wednesdays?
Yeah, Wednesdays.
And that's all people would drink were Incredible Hulks?
For the most part, yeah. And it was this little dance floor, so like it was so small. But when I tell you people would be acting up in there, and this is on an Air Force base, so MPs would be outside, cops would be outside, just pulling people over left and right, unfortunately. But inside it was lit.
So basically it was basically if they saw you leaving, it was basically like a night you were also guaranteed guaranteed a ticket. It was a setup.
It was a setup.
They were definitely. Do you know if they have quotas over there that they have to meet like the cops do here?
Yeah. It was a setup for sure. But inside it was lit.
Okay, well. I was definitely, so that was actually a nice little segue because I know you guys like to get lit. The way that you guys do with the beer and mainly I think is the beer, but is that for Germany or is that just certain places in Europe that are known for like just their beer?
So Germany is really big on beer just because they make so much beer over there. But I feel like beer as a whole in Europe is a big thing. But I mean, don't get me wrong, we drink our heavy liquor too a lot. So
I mean, that's what. Sorry, not sorry, but that's the main thing I feel like I know about you guys is that Europeans in general just really love to drink. You guys like drink with your meal, drink. Like if you have free time, let's just drink. Like even if you have no time, let's squeeze a drink up in here.
So quick backtrack. I actually probably should have said this earlier, but my mom's actually British. So not only was I raised in Germany, but like I was raised with a British mom. So like I had a whole European culture my whole entire life. And my mom always used to say like, yeah, I used to drink wine while I was pregnant with you, which probably explains a lot, honestly. But I know like even at a young age, my sister and I, we probably started drinking wine with dinner probably at 10. And people think that's weird, but you know, I feel like I've never had a problem with alcohol in any type of way. Like I've never blackout drunk.
Okay. As you were.
Let me stop. Okay, so basically I never feel like I've had a consistent time where like I've blacked out. You know what I mean? Like it's never been anything on a frequent basis, or I never felt like I was addicted to alcohol or needed it all the time. And I feel like it's because my parents, well, not really my dad. My dad's from Georgia, so he wasn't really like with that. But my mom like wanted us to always drink in the house because she wanted to see like how we did act if we ever got like a little bit too much. And then also she just wanted us to be comfortable coming to her for things like that. So yeah, I remember being like 12 drinking wine at dinner, and then from 16 we can drink in the clubs over there, and it's like Grey Goose and Hennessy. Like you can really drink whatever you want at 16. So I would say that's when, even then, like I never got crazy drunk, but my friends and I used to have like high school parties, and of course it'd be like 16, 17-year-olds all like with heavy bottles.
That is wild. Like being that I'm from the States, and of course a lot of people listening right now are probably like, what? That just sounds like a recipe for disaster.
But it's not. It's so wild. Like my best friend Denise, we went to the same high school in Germany, and we talk about it all the time, and we never, I mean, like obviously there was like a party where somebody would just get like drunk and do something stupid, but it was never the same people that did stupid stuff. And we never did anything crazy. Like nobody ever got a DUI. Nobody ever went to jail. Like we just had a good ass time.
Well, maybe due to the fact this is about to come off real raggedy, so excuse me. Due to the fact that they raised you guys around alcohol at such an early age, it was like by the time you guys were legally able to, I guess, consume it yourselves without the consent of an adult or whatever, it's like, oh, we're not new to this, we're true to this. So it's not, whereas here, majority of us aren't even introduced to liquor until we reach a certain age. And then most of the time, some people, of course, were drinking in like high school. Then you have people that, of course, drink when they get to college. But still, when you hit college, you still can't legally purchase liquor until the age of 21. Yeah. So by the time you hit 21, it's like, oh, I got to go balls to the wall.
Literally,
like, yeah. So that's why maybe a lot of us really have those blackout nights, because like we're just so happy that we no longer have to do this in secret.
Yeah,
that now we could just wild out. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. But it's like that too with the clubs. So we could get into the clubs at 16 as well, but you had to have like a signed piece of paper. So we would have to get like a copy of our parents' ID card, and they would like write underneath like, I give permission to Jade. I'm not going to put my government out there, but I give permission to Jade to go to Coyotes tonight. So Coyotes, when I was in high school, Coyotes was a spot like lit, and we used to be in there 16 through 18 partying with like 25 and up. I remember the first time I ever went, my dad's rule, so I'm really close with both my parents, and the rule was if I wanted to go to the club with my friends, my dad had to be there with us. So I was like, yeah, it's cool, I'm not really worried. And my dad was in the club the whole entire time, and I remember like the clubs in Germany stay open until about 5:30, 6 in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah, so I got to my dad. This was early. It's like 1:30. This is early for me back then. And I was like, Dad, I'm ready for us to go. Like, we need to leave. And he's with his friends. Like, are you sure? Like, you don't want to stay for a little bit? I'm like, no, we got to drive home. I don't want to be here anymore.
Wow.
Yeah, but from
killing
that
his
point, literally though. But from that point, he was like, yeah, I see the people you hang out with. I know what the environment's like in there. So I'll just sign your little piece of paper and you're good to go. But I remember there was one time where I couldn't get in. They said, I think that like my dad didn't sign like the date on it or something. So the bouncer was like, oh no, you're not getting in. And my best friend Denise, she wasn't out with me this night. I was with some other friends from high school and they just all left me and went inside. So I'm just standing outside by myself and it gets cold in Germany. Like we used to be out waiting to get in the club at like 35-degree weather with jackets on and dresses. Yeah.
That's ghetto.
It was ghetto.
Anyone that knows me knows I hate
ghetto.
winter. Oh my gosh.
Oh, everybody does. But I mean, we have a coat check, so it kind of helped out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had to call my parents, like, I can't get into the club. Can you come pick me up?
All my friends left me.
Literally. And my dad came and just like helped me get in and then left again. And I was like, wow. Thanks. Yeah.
That's a real
one thing that sucks about the clubs there is that people can smoke cigarettes inside the clubs.
Oh.
So when you leave, you're guaranteed to smell like cigarettes.
No, that's ghetto. But so now that you schooled me in this liquor situation,
sorry.
I wanted to know. So, at what age did you initially move over to the States? You talked about moving by yourself, but at what age did you move to Florida?
I moved to Florida when I was a freshman.
So, being that you were like 14 when you moved over, do you remember how you felt when you first got acclimated to like the Florida lifestyle? Because we know Florida is different.
Okay, so before that, I lived in Japan. So I was in this little tiny island called Okinawa. So I lived in Okinawa for 2 years, and the Japanese culture is beautiful. Like
that's one place that's on my bucket list. I want to go to Japan.
The food, amazing. Everywhere is so clean. You could leave your wallet at a McDonald's, and they're so big on like respect to their family. You could go back 2 days later, and you can get your full wallet back. Yeah, they have a problem with like some of the Americans out there, but it's only the Americans. It's not the Japanese people at all. Yeah, beautiful. But yeah, so I moved from Georgia to Japan, and the Japanese culture just like overtook. My dad was deployed basically the whole time we were there. So my mom, she got a job where she taught English to Japanese kids. So we were always out with like Japanese kids and at her job, and her manager was really nice and would take us out to like popular restaurants and get us in on the culture even more, like with the food and stuff. Things that you wouldn't naturally try if you were, if you didn't have friends that are
some of everything. So
literally, I remember one time she asked me, she was like, "Do you want tacos?" And I love Mexican food, so I was like, "Yeah, of course I want tacos." And I went to the bathroom, and my younger sister, she stopped me when I came out the bathroom, and she was like, "No, Jade, tacos is not tacos." I'm like, "Yeah, it is." Like, as an older sibling, you never trust your younger sibling. I'm like, "No, she's going to give us tacos. Like, we're about to get Mexican food." No. So tacos in Japan are octopus. So she gave us like fried octopus, and I feel like if I would have known it was octopus, I probably would have liked it. But going in thinking I was eating a taco, it was terrible. Yeah. But no, sorry, completely off track. Yeah, in Japan, anime is a really big thing. So I was really big on anime. I was really big on like theater back then, and just so many different things that I think, unfortunately, Americans aren't really big on just trying new things, especially in the Black community. It's like very much so. If your family or friend think that it's weird, chances are you're not going to try it or you're not going to do it. Like the anime culture within Black people is already like such a small group. I mean, it's a big group, but people don't try it, I would say. Like, it's not something that people just like mingle in. Like, oh yeah, let me try this anime show. So I moved from Japan to Florida. I remember my first day in Florida, I was terrified because I went to a school with barely any kids. And then in Florida, it was like a graduating class of like 350. And I remember walking in the hallways. Everybody was cussing. There were girls that were pregnant. I didn't know anything about gangs. There were gangs and everything. So I was like completely out of my comfort zone. And I remember some kids had asked me like, oh, so where did you move here from? I'm like, Japan. And people were just like, where is that?
Bruh, no, you didn't.
You know, like, people didn't know where Japan was. They didn't know. They were like, they have black people in Japan? Like, that used to be the number one question. Like, how were you over there? Why do you speak English? So it was just, yeah.
They failed us on so many levels here in the States, man.
But I don't think it's a bad thing, you know. You just, if you're not used to a military environment, you're not going to understand it. Yeah. So I was never mad about them asking questions. I've always been really open, you know, like with my childhood and everything. But yeah, it was definitely a culture shock. People asked me like what type of music I liked, and I was really I didn't know any rap. Like, no
and if
rap.
You know her, this is actually very surprising.
Yeah, I didn't know any rap. This kid named Dylan, shout out to Dylan. I still remember him. Dylan rode my bus. He put me on a Lil Wayne. And I remember the first time I listened to Lil Wayne, I was like, yo, this is good. And he was like, yeah. It did. He put me on everything. So that's when I really started listening to rap, because it was a lot of everything else back in the day. Yeah.
First off, I don't think, what part of Florida did you say you moved to?
Panama City.
Panama City. And it's funny because the only thing I know about Panama City is that's where a lot of people go for spring break.
Yeah.
And it's raggedy for that reason, because it's a spring break.
They don't do it anymore. So MTV and like BET, VH1, they used to all go out there, and they used to be like this crazy thing at Spinnakers and everything. And they stopped, I guess, because so many people were just like jumping off balconies when they were drunk. And yeah, like they had so many problems with alcohol. So they were just like, yeah. People were going to Panama City to see multiple artists. Like, and this is when, I'm not saying music's not big now, but it's like performing was such a big thing. Like Lil Wayne, it's such a big thing to go out to the beach and like watch a performance. And now I think people just go to Miami to go to the club. I don't think it's like...
Yeah. People definitely don't care about celebrities.
It's not a big thing anymore. It really was just Lil Wayne that everybody was crazy about. Because I remember people were trying to get out of school to go see him, but...
That's wild.
Yeah.
But, so something else that I wanted to touch on. So this is actually why I thought about bringing you in for this topic. So I saw this video on TikTok, and it was basically the person posed the same question that I did at the start of the episode, where they basically was like, well, they were like, in so many words, they were like, okay, if you're like from like overseas or whatever, what's something that is a huge difference in where you came from versus living in the States? And multiple people all came over from Europe, and they said the one thing that jumped out to them when it came time for them to find a job was simply filling out a job application and having to answer the question, what race you're a part of.
Yeah.
And they were just like, people don't realize that this is so irrelevant everywhere else in the world. And of course, it was people in the States that were commenting like, really? Like, that's unheard of here. Like, that's legit part of every application you probably will ever fill out in life. They're always going to ask you your race and nationality. Sorry about that, as I was saying. Yeah, any application you ever fill out here in the U.S., that's the number one thing they're going to make you fill out every time, your race and nationality. And if you really think about it, what does that have to do with this position that I'm applying for?
Literally nothing.
Unless, of course, I don't think jobs like to admit this. They're clearly trying to like build quote unquote diversity and trying to meet whatever race quota or whatever. That's something that they don't like to admit, but we all know that's why that question is on all the applications.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious to know, like, so clearly you have worked over in Germany before or whatever. So what are some other things, like, you can touched on it a little bit as far as like over here, it seems like we'll all work, very little play. Whereas over there, you guys, it just essentially sounds like you guys really prioritize like work-life balance.
I think it starts earlier. I think it starts basically outside of high school. Like if people decide to go to school, as most people know, school is free over there. And then also they have a lot of apprenticeships, which I think it's so sad. I think internships, I'm sorry to say it, I think they're slavery. You cannot afford to live in America without making money, you know, especially if you're out of school. The fact that they don't do internships until most people are at their senior year or they already graduated. Excuse me, I'm supposed to be making money. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have time to do this for free, especially since I've already been in school for 4 years, so I know how to do it. But you want me to do it for free? Yeah. And Germany especially is so big on apprenticeships that I don't understand why America doesn't kind of like catch the trend of, hey, let's try introducing apprenticeships and pay to teach people how to do what we want, the experience that we expect, you know, like so many jobs, when you look for jobs, it's like 5 to 10 years of experience, but you're only paying me $15 an hour, if that, if I'm lucky. Yeah. But then still, my biggest thing is that American jobs do not train you. Yeah, and if you really think about it, they just throw a PowerPoint at you, or they just give you like maybe a week, you know, like they don't really dig deep to tell you what they expect from you, go over the specific skills that they want you to know or learn for the position. It's just like, good luck. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then they get mad when you're not doing what they expected of you. But, you know, most people aren't mind readers. And then depending on the situation you came from, you may have all the experience in the world from another company, but if this new company does things differently, that past experience is not going to make any difference in this new experience because it's a brand new environment. You have a brand new team that you have to work with.
So basically, to sum up what you said thus far, in the States, we don't pay people, which we don't. No. We also don't like to train people. We don't. So, I mean, so far, you've yet to say any lies that I haven't experienced, so I don't know. I'm trying to think of something else that I heard of. You know what? I'm a little triggered. So, being that I'm someone that likes to travel, right? I feel like you really don't realize how America is truly like portrayed until you go to these other countries. So basically what I learned is when I go to all these other countries, right, you truly learned how they view Americans. And honestly, granted, nowhere I've gone to has necessarily came straight out and said this. I saw that. But I feel like we are very basic compared to other countries because most people in other countries know several different languages, whereas we pretty much just know the one, unless you're from like a Spanish-speaking country and like you're bilingual, or you know you're coming from somewhere else, necessarily like in the Caribbean where they have multiple languages, whatever. But again, like here in the States, we're so oblivious to so much that goes on in the world outside of us. All we think about is essentially us. Yeah. Whereas they're very uneducated and selfish in that way, that we only think about like what's going on in our backyard and not necessarily everywhere else. Yeah. And even our view of certain countries, like for instance, like Africa. The way that Africa is portrayed here, we just assume it's just the country in general is so poor. But when you meet people that are African that come over here, they're like, actually, America is quite ghetto. Because what we're used to over there, people have money. Yeah. Like the one thing that everyone that I talked to that came over there, that something that was a culture shock for them was credit. They were just like, what's credit?
No, that's like a huge thing. Yeah. Other countries don't really have the whole credit thing that America focuses on. And it's like, It's honestly a setup.
Absolutely.
Because when I moved to the States, I was trying to get an apartment, you know, trying to get a car, trying to get basic things to survive. And everything was based on credit. And I'm just like, well, I never needed credit in my life. So, you know, I got credit cards. And then the issue then was, oh, well, you didn't build your credit, you know? And then I'm just like, oh, well, that's a weird concept that you want me to basically borrow a huge sum of money that I don't even have the money to pay back, but you want me to continuously make payments on it, but you attached interest on it, so I'm paying more than I needed to pay. Yeah, so basically, even getting a car, they tried to make me have a
co-signer?
Yeah, co-signer. And I'm just like, this sounds like a setup, you know? Like,
so, quick question. So, if you didn't have credit prior to coming over to the States, did you guys not need credit in Germany?
No.
So, everything you guys purchased was in cash, essentially?
Yes.
And
cash is such a big thing over there. Usually just, like, I think the whole concept of credit cards, I mean, maybe in bigger cities they do it, but even debit cards and stuff, everybody just pays in cash.
Damn, even debit?
For the most part, yeah.
I know, so like in Africa, and it's funny because, again, speaking of TikTok, so on the TikTok video, this African girl was like, actually America is poor because literally anybody you see with an iPhone in Africa, with a car, with a house, these people purchase all these things in cash.
Yeah.
She was like, what is credit?
But
you know what I mean?
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
I was just going to say that I think that for a long time, America's wanted to look like a better country than what it is. So I think that it just kind of makes other countries look weaker. So then it's like, you know, if you never leave America or the United States, you're like, oh, we're great. We're doing fine. Like, okay, yeah, we have to pay an arm and a leg for healthcare. But besides that, like, what's the issue? And it's not until you really broaden your horizons and get out there and see how other countries are functioning that you're kind of like, wait a second. But we don't function like that. How come these other countries don't have police brutality like this? Or, you know, there's not as many homeless people. And it kind of brings awareness to so many things. And that's why I'm such a big advocate for, like, get out there. Like, just go see. I mean, obviously it's COVID, but like, go see the world because things are not what we try to make them seem sometimes.
Something else that you touched on too, I kind of touched on this in one of my other episodes. It was the royal discussion episode because a comment was made, something along the lines of, I think it was Meghan Markle's father basically tried to insinuate that they don't have the same racial issues over in Europe that we tend to have here in the States. And of course, it was a lot of people in those comments that were from overseas that was like, no, we absolutely still have racial issues over here. So can you speak to that at all?
I mean, it's kind of different for me just because being on a military environment or being in a military environment, you're surrounded by so many Americans. So it's not really like, I do agree that it's still present. Unfortunately, I think that race is still a topic in a number of places, sadly, even though it doesn't deserve to be. I just think that sometimes it's with other cultures as well, more than just, you know, in the States, it's really, I think, it seems like majority of it is just Black people, African Americans, you know, and you don't really hear about it too much, but I think that it's also Muslim, and I think that that's like a big one over in Europe as well.
Because, well, for obvious reasons with us, especially after 9/11, that's when a lot of people definitely started scrutinizing and singling out Muslims a lot more, because it was just like, whether you were actually Muslim or not, you were discriminated against. It was just like, no, because we know what you guys did. And it was kind of just like, no, we don't support that either. Like, that's not all of us or whatever. Yeah, but we're talking about Muslims being discriminated against, especially after 9/11. And due to the fact that you guys clearly are relatively closer than what we are. I'm sure they're even more discriminated against on that side of the world compared to where we are.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just because you may practice the same religion doesn't necessarily mean that you agree with the actions of someone else in your own religion.
Of course.
That's just like a lot of the judgment that Christians have against other people that are Christians, aren't Christians, whether they're a part of the LGBTQ community or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone doesn't have the same mindset just because they come from the same religious backgrounds. But something else kind of touching onto that is the fact that I feel like a lot of people in the U.S. are ignorant. And they're ignorant because, again, they haven't broadened their horizons and, just took the time out to learn about what else goes on outside of these borders, which is another reason why, just like you, I'm an advocate too. I feel like you need to, there's a whole world out there to see. Do not just stay here in the U.S. because you will be blinded by so much.
So much.
And like something else that, so a while back I had went to Aruba and you really don't understand the impact of America until you go places like this. Like Aruba, for those that don't know, is only 19 miles long. And it's super small for that reason. I think it only has around like 100,000 residents or something like that. So I remember when we went there, the one thing that everyone kept asking us, first off, they're the nicest people I've ever met. Like out of the country, nicest people ever. And they were just like, can I ask you something? And I was just like, oh, hell, where is this going? So I'm like, okay, what? They're like, how are you? And I'm like, what do you mean by that? They're like, your president is Trump. Like, so are you okay? They're like, because like we can only imagine what it is for you guys living over there, right? Like they were so genuinely concerned.
Yeah.
It was like a genuine concern, but at the same time, kind of funny.
Yeah.
So like once we laughed, it made them more comfortable talking about it. But just the way that they oftentimes brought it up, you could look in their eyes and just be like, no, because like what your country is going through right now, it's a lot. And then like I know a lot of people too, because I told you about the podcast that I watch. It's a brother and sister podcast that I watch, and they're based out of London as well. And they talk about how I was telling you that their humor over there is different. Whereas something over there may be funny, over here it's a touchy subject. Just like one of the jokes that they made was about school shooters. And I'm like, over here, that's not a funny topic because pre-COVID, we were having a new shooting every week. It seemed like every other day, really, it felt like. And the only reason why they stopped was, again, because of quarantine and stuff like that. And now if you're paying attention, now that we're starting to get reacclimated and readjusted to our normal way of living, the shootings are starting to go back up again.
Right.
And that's something that I feel like, oh, you know what? Now that I'm bringing up like gun violence, how do you feel like gun violence is over like in Europe opposed to how it is here?
Gun violence.
What?
I don't understand the question.
So, I'm saying, how do you feel like gun violence is overseas compared to what it is here in the U.S.?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, like, obviously they had their cases in England not too long ago, but I think as far as Germany, you don't really hear about it too often. Like the cops don't even have guns; they just have batons.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
You're not allowed to have guns over there, so you don't hear a lot of violence.
That's crazy.
And that's one thing I forgot to bring up when you asked me earlier what a major difference was, and safety was a very big eye-opener when I moved to Maryland, because in Germany, me and my best friend, we used to walk home or walk to our cars from the club at 5 a.m. Sometimes we'd be walking between clubs at 2, 3 a.m., you know what I mean? Like, and not be worried and be walking in heels and not feel that we had to really like watch our backs. Now, again, this is just in where I lived in Germany, because my sister actually lives in London, and London is different. You know, London is a major city. You got to watch your back all the time. But no, we didn't ever worry about people having guns or, you know, being in a sticky situation rather. So when I moved to Maryland, you know, locking your door, like it would just cross my mind because it's something that I didn't need to always do all the time. And then people would be like, oh, you're crazy. You have to make sure you lock your doors, you know, like watch your back. When you walk by yourself, make sure you have a key between your knuckles, like stuff like that, that especially as a woman, it's kind of like engraved into you. Like make sure you're always watching your back. Don't wear headphones when you walk outside. If you're going for a run, never run in the same locations. And those things were never really taught to me until I was in the States, unfortunately.
That's crazy to think about now that you put it in that way.
Yeah.
I just, because of course, granted, I'm not a woman, but these are things that even to an extent guys know to kind of look out for too. Like, you're not going to, which I know most guys will probably do this, but we're cognizant as far as like we're being taught to be aware of our surroundings when we do things by ourselves late at night and stuff like that. And of course, as a woman, you're taught to just avoid doing a lot of things at night for that reason. But yeah, I never really thought about the fact that overseas, maybe you guys just don't have the same sort of threat.
It was just like a different topic, you know? It's just like, be safe, you know what I mean? And over here, it's like, where are you going? Who are you with? You know, what time are you planning on getting home? Make sure you call me the whole time. Like, as a woman, you're always, like, me and my best friend, our locations are always on for each other.
That's wild.
You know, just little things that you don't really think of. And I mean, obviously, you need to always be safe, regardless of where you are. But I'm just saying that the focus on it isn't as much when you're in another country where it's quieter and just the focus on things is a little bit different.
I meant to go back to, Renan, you said like the police in Germany don't have guns. But do you know if having access to a gun is easier over there than it is over here?
I honestly don't know. I don't think it is because I don't
I would assume not if they don't even carry as an officer of the law. So
no, I don't. Yeah.
That's wild. The fact that that's how you know. Now, granted, I can't imagine police without guns here in the States just because at the end of the day, we know as Americans, we're crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you come across some fools in this world. You get what I'm saying? But at least over there, it goes to show that you can still rule with an iron fist without having that piece of iron, you know, to use as a weapon. You can still, you know, use a certain structure to keep people in line and not have to necessarily resort to violence.
But I think a lot of times we have to sit down and ask where violence comes from.
I think we all know.
Yeah, it comes from so many things that people already are aware of. You know, people are mad because they don't have enough money. So they rob, or people are mad because they don't have the right health care. So now they're sick. And a big thing is mental health. So there's a circle of things that we know is wrong with people, but people don't have access to these things. So either they get angry and reach out, or, you know, it's a survival type thing for people. I'm not saying on every instance there are, you know, people that are serial killers or just kind of like, don't have all their marbles in one basket, but I mean, vast majority, they're doing it to survive. But then when you go to other countries where it's easier in a sense to be able to survive because you have access to so many different things where, you know, you don't have to question if you're really covered. If you don't have to question if you're going to be able to pay your rent the next month. You know, like, there's just so much. If you ask the average American, I feel like, especially nowadays, the average American is living paycheck to paycheck.
Triggered.
Yeah, most people are struggling in some type of way, you know, like, and maybe not even financially, but even in the mental health sense, like, Americans are struggling, and we've been struggling.
I was about to say, and this is pre-COVID. We were struggling before, and now that additional stress being dropped on us, and it's something that nobody has experienced before. This is uncharted water, so our stress levels have definitely peaked over the last year. Like, no questions asked.
Exactly, yeah.
That's
it's honestly, it's just sad. It's just sad to watch everything and like sometimes not even know like what the answer is as a whole. Like, what are Americans even supposed to do to overcome some things when it's bigger than you? It's your government. It's, you know, your community. It's everything surrounding you. Where do you even start? Which I know they say like it starts in your community, you work from there, but then even then sometimes what do you do?
I feel like you just said so much that made me, it was like every few things you said, I thought of something else that I wanted to touch on. So in one of the things that you said in the package that you just brought forth, so crap, I lost my train of thought that fast. It was something dealing with the fact that okay, I know what it was. Going back to even like healthcare, right?
Yeah.
I honestly, this is how ignorant I was. Granted, I was younger, so that's my excuse. I did not realize that there are literally countries out there that offer free healthcare until I met people from those countries. So for instance, like my brother, for instance, his mom is Canadian. And I remember being younger, hearing her talking about, I don't understand the healthcare concept here in the US. She's like, why is it that that's not free? And I remember I had to be maybe 10 when I heard her have that discussion openly. I'm like, wait, so healthcare is free. And mind you, I'm 10. I'm not even paying bills at that age. And that just sounds ridiculous. Like that you're getting something for free here in the US of A. That makes no sense. So I'm just like, that's really free. And then later in life, I found out, like, I remember I had actually graduated college, and the first job I had out of college, I was working at a pharmacy, and one of my coworkers, again, was Canadian, and she was quitting her job to be a stay-at-home mom, whatever, and her oldest kid was about to graduate from high school, and everyone was like, oh, where's your, I think it was the son that she had. Everyone was like, where's your son going? She's like, oh, he really doesn't have a choice. We're making him go back to Canada because he'll get school for free, being a dual citizen or whatever. She was like, he's moving in with my parents, and after he completes his 4-year program up there, due to the fact that it's free, that's where he's going. And it's understood. There's no discussion, because if he was to stay here and go to school, they just flat out couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
And just like you said, living paycheck to paycheck, she had a decent job, and her husband, I know for a fact, had bread. So the fact that these two together and the money that they were bringing in collectively felt as though they need to ship their child back out of the country because it will be better, like, financially, speaks volumes to the fact that we need to change something when it comes to, like, a lot of the things that we have in place here in America, because we should not be living paycheck to paycheck, especially having some of the professions that we have. That's ridiculous.
But there's so many people that finish their bachelor's and have such a hard time getting jobs anyway.
Triggered.
So it's just like, yeah, same. I went to school for human resources. I've never worked a day in human resources. Never. And that's because whenever I applied, so I didn't do an internship after college because I was moving to the States. And, you know, usually internships are through your school. So I didn't get that opportunity. So when I moved to the States, they're like, that's awesome. You know, you got a degree. Cool. But where's your experience? And I'm just like, well, that's what I'm literally applying for. And I realize human resources is a great job to have because you have it for years. But you can't get into that shit. Like, it's so difficult to get into it. So that's how I ended up working in sales, because sales is always there.
They're always hiring for all sorts of sales positions.
But you know why? Because it's shit.
Yeah. And honestly, you don't need experience. Most of them will just be like, oh, you don't know that? We're going to half-ass train you, and we'll send you on your way. You'll be fine. You'll figure it out as you go.
Yeah. But
the reason why I'm triggered too, I was talking with a friend a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about if you're like one of the first, especially, I feel like this can apply to any race, but I'm specifically talking from a Black family background, right? So if you're one of the first people in your family to even go to college. You don't even know, there's internships out there, but to the point that you mentioned earlier, everyone knows that you don't get paid for internships. So it's like, you want me to work for free? And to the point that you also said, I'm about to graduate. I don't have time to do any sort of labor and I get paid for it. Because the way life is set up, my bills are adding up and you're not throwing money out there to help me pay for these bills. No, I don't have time for that. That sounds stupid to me. But it bites you in the ass in the end because, of course, once you get that degree and you're like, ooh, I made it. I'm about to get this job. And then when you get to the interviews and stuff, they're like, well, where's that experience? Yeah. And it's like, I thought I gained that over the last 4 years. Was that not enough? No. And it's because they expect you to do those free internships, that free labor. And it's like, how is that fair?
And then a lot of internships.
What are you about to say?
They just don't even focus on the right things, you know? Sometimes it's just kind of like, oh, follow this employee around and do their dirty work. Yeah. But you don't really get trained on how to use what they're using. Or it's not like an apprenticeship where you're following in their footsteps. You're just kind of cleaning up behind them.
Yeah. More so acting like an assistant.
Yeah.
Like you said, like run these errands. So you're not there to see firsthand what goes into that role that you're trying to like.
It's like administrative work. Yeah. But, you know, that's not the position you were necessarily applying for. Yeah. So it's an ugly cycle.
Yeah. So I don't mean to jump all over the place in this episode, but it's like me and you will be talking and then you say something that triggers another thought I had. So going back a ways into this discussion, and I know we're kind of getting up to our time or whatever, so this may be the last thing I'll bring up. So I wanted to know, how was it growing up overseas, being biracial, and then coming over here? Was there a difference between the way you were treated or maybe even certain things that you just picked up on that was different and you had to move differently between the two? Does that make sense at all?
No, it makes sense. Again, it's hard to answer because I was raised around a lot of Americans. Obviously, yeah, I went out and was in the economy, but I don't speak fluent enough German to know when people are talking about me or saying things. I do know that I still dealt with racial problems on a frequent basis, being around, obviously, other Americans, and that started from a young age. I will say, regardless of where you are, I do think that there is an issue with colorism, regardless of where you are in the world. I think that, and that's something that I think that more mixed or like lighter skinned people do need to realize, especially if you're a woman. It's a thing, you know. Pretty privilege is a ugly and realistic thing that people need to really realize and find a way to overcome, you know. We don't need to be telling Black women that they're beautiful just because they have oil on their skin or that their hair is pretty. Like, there's so many other things to it, you know? And there's been times where I've heard numerous Black, like, darker skinned women say that they felt like they didn't get the same opportunities or were looked at differently. And I've seen that firsthand a number of times. So I think that unfortunately goes anywhere in the world, just based off my experience, at least.
Listen, I feel like most people listening to this, if they're realists, they know these are all facts that you're spitting out right now. Like, I feel like individuals that don't see this, it's because they choose not to see it.
Yeah, I agree.
There's no way that you feel there's no way you can't sit here and say, oh, I don't think colorism exists. I don't think that the lighter skinned people have a privilege over darker skinned people. What world do you live in? Yeah. Because especially here in the US of A, get out of here, man.
Yeah, definitely. There's just been so many times where people have made like off-putting comments to me, like they'll just feel comfortable saying things because I guess they think that I'm going to feel the same way, or they'll be like, oh, I just don't feel comfortable around that person, or oh, I thought she was going to steal or something. Like, oh, what? Right. Just because, based on their skin color? Right. Like, get that. I don't know if you want cussing on your show, but
I mean,
you know, it's just, I think we have to realize as human beings that characteristics or morals is not attached to a specific skin tone, you know, like people can be so many different things. Like you could be a basket full of so many different drinks, you know what I mean? Like people are just different, and it just because two people are the same color, we may have been raised completely differently, and that's what it goes back to. It's what you're raised around. It's what you're brought up amongst is what really determines the type of person you're going to be. And even if you were raised in a difficult background or an ignorant background, that doesn't mean you can't change. Like, you can always throw shit out of your basket at any time, but to think that everybody, oh, you're light skinned too, like you feel this way and this, get out of here. Yeah. Like, that's so
You know what's so funny? Now that you're bringing this up, you're the perfect person that, I'm glad I asked this specifically to you, right? Because I remember telling you when I first met you, me being like, when my brother brought you over, I was like, where is she from? She's not from here, because you don't carry yourself like the typical, like, light-skinned pretty chick or whatever. You're hella humble or whatever, and you always speak of people highly. It's not like you ever carry yourself like you know, because like you have this pretty privilege or whatever. You're not the type to turn your nose up at someone else that may not be deemed as pretty as you due to the color of your skin or whatever.
I think it's because I lived so many different places and I've seen so many different things, and I've been in situations where people just presume that I'm a certain way. So, and it's been in a positive sense, and it's been in a negative sense. So there's been times where I've felt where I'm not trying any type of way to compare myself to people that have been in negative situations where they've been judged. But there's been times where I felt like people judged me off of something that I had no control over. So to be black myself and then to judge somebody else off of that, like, get out of here.
That makes no sense.
It makes no sense. I know what it feels like. So why would I ever turn my nose up at anybody when I can just sit down with them and get to know why they think that way and just try. I think the biggest thing that we have to do is just educate people. That's it. Just educate people on different concepts in life, you know, different areas. And that's how I think America is able to grow. And even though now it seems like, oh, America is being really sensitive, this might be the turning point. This might be what America needs to go through to become sensitive, to realize that everything that we said before, we were just turning a blind eye at. So maybe now, if people start to realize, like, hey, these upcoming generations are not going to take this. Maybe that's how it will start, like, plant a seed where one day healthcare will be able to be free because they realize, like, little things, you know, like, people are so unhappy right now. So I don't know. I feel like I just went on like a tangent.
Everything you said was nothing short of facts, honestly, because just as you said, planting that seed, like, due to the fact that America is a melting pot and all these places are coming here because of the reputation that we built, right? That's what people are basing our lifestyle on. And then when they get here, they're like, right, that's not the reality. Like, it's rough over here. Granted, it's better than where a lot of people are coming from. But there's still certain things that they left that they wish they can still...
They were still sold a dream.
Yeah, basically. And then when they get here, they're like, this is nice, but I kind of wish that free healthcare that I was used to getting back home, that they're having to pay an arm, leg, and a pinky toe for over here. And it's just like, and then you get that, then the healthcare you get, like, you're paying outrageous amount of money for it, and then you're getting like minimal treatment, and you're paying out the ass for it even after insurance.
Literally.
It's just like everything over here is honestly a scam. Like any sort of insurance, scam.
It's a scam, but it's all to pay towards things going back to like it. When you really sit down and think about it, everything plays a part, because we pay so much for healthcare because people have to pay so much to go to school to be doctors, and then people have all this. I mean, the credit doesn't really go in line with it, but I'm just saying, like, there's so much money that America does not really have, that we pretend that we have, that it just creates this ever-growing cycle of looking for it somewhere else.
But something else that you just said that low-key triggered me. So we as Americans are like, okay, we know we're broke. That's why so many people are in debt, right? Yeah. But at the same time, what COVID has showed us is how truly broke are we, because you've been dropping stimmy checks. Like, I would say about once a quarter at this point, where granted, that's better than nothing, but still in the grand scheme of things, when you compare the way we've been dealing with COVID compared to other countries, it's still like you've had people out there that have been, their mortgages have been covered for months at a time. And it was from day one, whereas here, we had to beg for those stimulus packages. Hell, even still begging for stimulus packages. And the question that a lot of people still have is, well, where is all this money coming from if we're so in debt?
Right.
So I just feel like you said, this COVID, this pandemic has really exposed a lot of America's history. And a lot of people are starting to wake up and be really fed up with a lot of shit that we've just been taking over all. Yeah. And like you said, I feel like I touched on this a little bit in some of my other episodes too, saying that I feel like as the generations go, you know, on and on or whatever, a lot of people are starting to essentially wake up and not take a lot of the shit that we were used to taking. Well, not necessarily us, more so our ancestors. You know, they weren't necessarily ruffling the same amount of feathers as us or whatever. Of course, they still fought their own set of fights, especially with the civil rights movement and things of that nature. But when it comes to more so like the other parts of the foundation that America is built from, a lot of people are starting to ask those difficult questions, and it's like, no, it's time for a change. Like, this is stupid.
Yeah. I feel like you have to ask questions. That's where change comes from.
Absolutely. But a lot of people don't want to change, because with change is like, you just have to be willing to change in order for change to actually be successful and actually start to see that bit of change from time to time. But a lot of people are stuck in their ways and they're not open to.
Yeah, people are scared.
Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Being
unfortunately,
afraid.
like a lot of older white people, they're so afraid. I think that we're gonna try and do what they did to us and take over, and like, bro, we just want equality.
Listen.
I'm not about to stand here with you. Nobody has time for that. Like,
nobody. Y'all weren't on that type of time. We
if you would have caught me a couple hundred years ago,
listen,
like not even a couple hundred, but you know what I mean? Like, that's a different time. But I think nowadays people just want their families to feel safe and equality and to be able to move up in positions where other people are just being tossed up there, you know, like, that's all we want. People just want to live normally and comfortably.
Yeah. And stress-free. Happy. Can we be happy?
Can we be happy? Right. Can I live in an apartment or a house where they don't go up every year on the price? For what? Why did you go up? What did you change?
And they love to just say, oh, the cost of living went up. Okay.
But my paycheck didn't go up. That's wild. That is so wild. Let's talk about it.
Yo.
I hate that. I literally just got mine on the door today. And I'm like, I've lived in the same apartment. So your trigger.
That is very relevant. It literally hit you today.
In the same apartment for 3 years. And it's going up. But they were like, since you've been here for 3 years, here's $75. I'm sorry. And then during COVID, I am throwing my apartment complex on blast. But in COVID, they were like, well, I mean, it's still COVID, but a couple months ago, they're like, we know everybody's having a really hard time. So we're going to do a little like trivia and give out a prize. So everybody's like sending emails to win the prize. They're like, congratulations. These lucky winners can come collect their free DiGiorno pizzas. Literally. I'm like, y'all could have at least got people a Papa John's. Like a DiGiorno?
No, talk to me ain't money. Like, don't give me no food.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm okay with getting food, but I don't want a frozen pizza. That's like $4.
I mean, I guess beggars
$4.99.
can't be choosers, but
you
no.
Can't,
If
it's
you're
still
in an
like,
apartment complex, don't come to me because nobody asked you to do anything from jump. So if you took it upon yourself to say, "Oh, I'm gonna help my residents that are in need by giving them frozen pizzas," sir, what if I don't even have the money to keep my lights on right now?
Thank you. That's what I'm saying.
What am I gonna do with this pizza?
I'm paying $1,000 a month, and you give me a frozen pizza.
What is that going to do? But make me mad.
Meet me outside. Like, I'm so glad I wasn't a winner in that. I'm so glad.
You know,
this is why I don't play games. I'm always disappointed.
You know what? But it was, I feel like this conversation started here and just, it took all sorts of lefts. And we're gathered here to do this evening was to discuss the lifestyle differences between Europeans and Americans, and we just spent the last probably 20 minutes frying America up.
I mean, I'm proud of being American, but shit could be better.
Absolutely.
That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely. But is there anything else that you maybe have left out that you want to get off your chest?
The mine's good.
Okay. So disclaimer, anyone that knows me know, I'm just now starting to get into wine, and this is pretty fire.
He's late.
I'm very late. I'm a tequila guy. Sorry, not sorry. Like this.
It's just like a different vibe. There's like a different drink for every vibe, I feel like.
I feel like people feel more sophisticated when they drink wine.
Look at the way you're holding it.
Right. This is class. If I had tequila, I would be trash.
I haven't had tequila in a minute.
I had it last week, and I'm gonna have it tomorrow.
Are you going out tomorrow?
No.
Oh.
You know, I can do raggedy stuff at home and be completely fine.
That's true. Yeah.
I love in-home raggedy session. That's all.
True.
That's my vibe. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and close out tonight's episode. I know we're probably well over our time at this point, but it is what it is. I want to again thank my sis Jade for pulling up, giving her German expertise on her experiences overseas opposed to those experienced here in the ghetto U.S. And shout out I know you did it at the beginning, but say it again, your IG. And she's also lit on Twitter as well. So
it's savvy.savage. But yes, thank you for having me on here.
Of course.
It's been a pleasure.
You'll probably see her again from time to time or whatever. And she also... You're about to start back up your YouTube channel too, right?
Yeah, you know, honestly, I don't have this fancy stuff, and now I want it. Like, I want to get all this because I feel like I just want to sit and talk.
Everything you see is sponsored by Amazon. Really not.
Shout out to Jeff Bezos, even though he's not the CEO anymore.
You know what?
Yeah, did it all come in a set? Because, you know, bitch,
you know, I'll give you the links to everything it says.
Yes,
it will not break your pockets. Trust me, because otherwise it would not be here right now.
Yeah.
But anyway, oh wait, did you want to shout out your page or no? It's clearly still under development, but we'll keep you guys posted on when she gets that jump started, because I'm definitely going to be a guest on her show as well.
Definitely.
But anyway, before I leave, I almost forgot. Please share your comments, especially if you also have lived overseas. Again, I love learning about the differences opposed to like the lifestyle over there compared to over here or anywhere else you may have lived in the world outside the U.S. And then also share those comments down below. I'm going to put Jade's information in the description down below. And until next time, peace.
Oh, I used my broken hand. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to sip on this with a Paris. About to get lit with these topics. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for the love and your time. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Without further ado, I bring to you this for you to sip on too.